Welcome to r/RedditRevenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 3 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Buyer goes to a dealership to buy a car advertised for $13,000, but is told by the salesman that it's closer to $15,500. After some negotiation, the buyer walks out when the salesman refuses to work with him. The second story. Coworker threatened me and supervisor laughed at it, so made place hell for them and then sued them. And won. The third story. My sister got into my Facebook. I placed a couple of offensive bumper stickers on her vanity SUV. The first story is dealing with a car dealer. A couple of years ago, I was in the market for a new-to-me used car. I was looking online and found one that had everything I wanted, had pretty much 0 miles, and was a great price. $13,000. I decided to check it out, so I get to the dealership and find the car. I'm walking up to it and a salesman approaches me. The conversation goes like this. Salesman, can I help you today? Me, sure. I'd like a little bit more info about this car. Salesman, of course. It's XXX brand and low miles. All the bells and whistles. Me, great. And it's listed at $13,000? Salesman, oh, there's no way it's that cheap. I'd imagine it's more like $15,000. Me, well, it only says $13,000. Here's the ad and everything. Salesman, that must be a mistake. Let's go talk to the sales manager. We go inside where the sales manager confirms that it is closer to $15,500. After showing him the ad on their website listing it for less, he gives the excuse of a third-party advertiser making a mistake, but they would be willing to work with me. So the salesman and I sit down. I start the conversation with, I'm a student and have class. If we get to 4:45, I'll need to leave. He acknowledged and we began chatting, at which he would not budge from the $15,500 price, and was way less than willing to work on trade-in price to get to the advertised price. He complains about this and that and makes excuses about other people, and tries a hardball approach until 4:45 hits and stands up, grab my keys, say sorry but your antics hit their time limit, and start to walk out. I tell him we'll be in touch to see if you've decided to work with me or not. I go to class, go home, the next day I send him an email. No response. I send a follow-up email the next day. No response. I call the following day. No response from him, but it changed me back to a different salesperson who says he's with someone and agrees to let him know I emailed him. Still no response. I go on with life without that car and bought it from somewhere else. Fast forward a few weeks later, and when the pettiness starts, I start getting emails from the salesman. You were interested in XXX car. Why don't you come take a look at these 3 type of ads, with cars way over what I was looking at. I reply with a you couldn't bother to email me about buying the $13,000 car, so take me off your list, since I bought another car and won't buy from you guys response. A few days later, another with another take me off your list reply. A few days later, another. This time the reply is to him and the sales manager thinking he's too old to know how to do that. A few days later, another. Now I'm peeved, but I let them come for a little bit to see if they stop. Since some companies claim it takes a few days. They don't. So I make the decision. I find the email address for the owner of the dealership. Every time I receive an ad from them, I forward the ad to the owner of the dealership with a note about the legalities of bait-and-switch ads, and not taking people off of correspondence lists when asked, and how the DMV Business Regulation Services and the state and FTC would love to hear about it. It didn't take too many forwards to the owner before those ads stopped coming, but I got a snarky email about the car I was looking at from the salesman, which also got forwarded to the owner. I now no longer worry about emails from them, as every single one with their name on it has been forwarded to the owner, with a nice note reminding them of the do not contact request, and a smile on my face. Not sure what happened to that guy, but I have enjoyed my non-XXX car ever since. One thing my dad taught me was when something is a problem and needs to be taken care of, find a person who gets paid way too much to deal with that and inconvenience them. They generally don't want to be bothered with that nonsense and direct a peon under them to handle it so they aren't bothered anymore. The next story is Threaten Me, Uno Reverse Revenge. Background. Just under 2 years ago, I was finishing up a 4-year contract with an organization I worked at. At the time, the incident that prompted my revenge, I had about 6 months left in my contract. One of my peers decided to start a smear campaign to my name to prevent me from renewing my contract. It was working. Superiors started to resent me and talk crap about my work. Subordinates were told to disregard me. More of my peers joined this smear campaign. I tried to work through it and was until the peer that started the smear campaign threatened me, and then in front of my other peers threatened to file false harassment allegations. For reference, I'm a male and my peer was a female. While I was worried about what the allegations would do to me, I wasn't worried about her actually going through with her other thread. Nonetheless, I reported it to our supervisor, also a female. Our supervisor laughed at me and said that because I was a guy, that I should just deal with it because I'm getting out so soon. She then kicked me out of her office. I was furious about the inequality, and rightfully so. Now all of the local checks and balances were done by me. I wrote all the standard operating procedures, SOP, generated reports, the works, even things that were not directly in my department, as I've worked in many of our departments. I also ensured training and certifications were completely regular. Without them, they couldn't access any systems. The revenge. I installed a white noise maker in my supervisor's office and had it play randomly, paid the night janitorial staff to move her desk and everything in her office by half an inch every night. As the SOP was made by myself and not the organization, shredded. How to pull reports? Shredded. List of inspection required lists, also made by me, shredded. I ensured that everyone's certificates ended the day I left. Check and balance procedures, I didn't verify they were done. No one else knew how and the SOP was destroyed. Training, done the hard way. By the time I left, the organization was in an unknown downward spiral. After getting out, I changed my number and moved out of state. I ensured everything I did was legal. I also anonymously reported to corporate HR the disaster the organization was now. My old supervisor was fired on the spot along with all my peers for negligence. I was a small-time manager. Once I was sure they were jobless, I then sued them for emotional damages. Had my supervisor lose custody of her kids because the white noisemaker had driven her up the wall and was paranoid and ensured that it would be difficult for them to get jobs in the sector we were in. Anything past manager would be hard to get for them. Update number 1. Former supervisor foreclosed on house and now living with family she despises. Extra win. Update number 2. From a friendly acquaintance I maintained throughout this time, I was just informed that my former supervisor was kicked out of her family's house for instigating fights. Apparently, she's bouncing between friends' houses. It's just getting better, but I'm starting to feel a minuscule shred of regret because her life has gone completely to SH. It isn't even the person who made the original thread. I have a new plan to set in motion. I may update the aftermath of this new plan. Update number 3. Due to COVID, my former supervisor moved out of state to try and get better job offers and to escape her despised family. Unknowingly, she moved to my city, where I'm now in a new job pretty high up by now without the smear campaign holding me back. As mentioned previously, though I am a friendly acquaintance, I found out she moved and checked resume sites looking for hers. I mentioned I started to feel bad, so directed HR of another department to her resume and told them the details. She was granted an interview and was hired. Even though I felt bad and got her low-level employment, I oversee training procedures. She was surprised to see me as her boss's boss. Revenge complete. After being hired, I started new training for instances like my own. Hopefully she's learned and she can make a comeback for her children. Update number 4. I don't know if anyone is still even remotely interested still, but even with her company-mandated limited leadership opportunities, she was caught by internal affairs to be grooming a new employee to do the same type of crap that happened to me. She was immediately fired and the groomed employee along with the newly harassed employee were separated, following new procedures written by yours truly. To avoid a clusterfuck of a potential lawsuit and to prevent her from going on unemployment, our company's legal team delved deeply into her previous employment, finding similar issues in many past employers. So with the backing of the company is truly amazing. Caring about the employee, the harassed employee contacted the people she previously harassed, myself included, and with the help of expert legal advisors, filed a class action harassment lawsuit. To avoid giving anything away, I won't name the people or the company, or the lawyers, because you've probably heard about it on the telly, but she's looking at permanent blacklisting for almost any job anywhere in my country. There are a lot of wrong parties making a lot of noise about her, so I doubt she could even get a minimum wage job without immigrating, not to mention possible jail time. I don't feel bad anymore. I had my revenge and tried to help her. Now we went the nuclear option to stop her from hurting anyone else. The last story is, hack my Facebook once, I'll laugh along. A second time and I get petty. Major family blow-up follows. This is the story of how my petty revenge against my B sister led to her disowning me for almost a year. About 7 years ago, I was the only one of my siblings still living close to my parents. I would visit them frequently to hang out, watch shows, football, etc. There was a laptop there that they rarely if ever used, so I would often browse the internet and Facebook on it. Once on a holiday when the whole fam was in town, my sisters got on the laptop and found it was still logged into my Facebook. So they make a post designed to embarrass me. Something along the lines of Saturday morning. Bieber scones appletinis. Perfect day. Honestly, it was pretty funny. I had no ill will. I can take a joke. Fast forward another 6 to 8 months. Everyone is back for another holiday. Now, I suppose you could fault me for leaving the laptop logged in, but it's not like the laptop's ever out in public, and I figured the joke was done once already. What would be the point in effing with my Facebook again? Apparently, the point was to just F with me, because my B sister pulled the same SH. When I found out, I told her there would be some kind of retaliation, and I started thinking about what it should be. First, a little back info on my sister. She has some nice qualities, but she can be a massive B. I have many stories, but I'll share a choice one. My dad has really nice season football tickets that he frequently shares with friends and family. This day, he brought my sister, my aunt, a coworker, the coworker's daughter-in-law, and myself to a 1 vs 2 matchup versus a rival team. The DIL just so happened to be a fan of the rival, and they won in overtime. Now, the DIL made a couple of very lighthearted jabs at us. Nothing mean-spirited, just typical friendly joking. Nobody had a problem with it except my sister. As we start driving home, my sister blurts out, "Well, I don't think we should invite fans of the other team anymore," with the girl in the car obliviously listening. Awkward silence followed. First of all, they weren't even her tickets, and it's not her effing place to decide who gets invited or doesn't. And now she's making this poor girl feel bad and unwanted just because she's too stuck up to take a little joke? Anyways, apologies were made in private, but I'll never forget how rude that was. The revenge. That's really just the tip of the iceberg with her. So I started planning my revenge, and one thing I knew about my sister was that she was very vain about her vehicle. Back when I was graduating high school and she was becoming a janitor, she spent months convincing my dad to buy her a new SUV instead of getting me a new car, and passing down the old family sedan that had been passed on to me at that age, because it was too masculine and all her friends would mock her, blah blah blah. Then rubbed it in my face when it came to pass. At the current time, she had bought her own luxury SUV. Knowing how much she cared about it, I knew that had to be the focus of my revenge. Originally, I thought about going with some tacky or offensive bumper stickers. I made my way to the local Spencer's where I figured I would find something fitting. I actually found some magnet stickers, and figured that would be better because they would come off easier. The magnets I bought were hilarious. One was an I Heart Effing bumper sticker. The other was an anthropomorphic penis man, basically a D-butt without the butt D. I stealthily attached them to the back of her SUV, and sat back to see what happened. The aftermath. So I had intended to call my sister in the morning to make sure she found them. Oops, I overslept. And turns out she has a remote control to open or shut her SUV rear door, so she never saw them before going to work. By about 10 a.m. I start getting voicemails from her. She was effing peeved. She said some of the vilest SH anyone's ever said to me. My other sister, who was in on it with me, had called her around 9 to let her know. Apparently they had some corporate higher-ups visiting that day. I don't think anyone would have actually saw them though. But still, I could have gotten her fired. I highly doubt that would have happened even if any of the bosses had seen it. This was a point of contention. Feel free to chime in with your take. So basically, for almost a year, my sister completely disowned me. Pretty much ignored me whenever we were all in town. Talked SH about how I'm a bum that almost got her fired. She still years later holds a grudge over it somewhat, but for the most part we get along. I still laugh over this SH though. Here's the best part, and I only know this because she told my other sister. Apparently on the way home she had to stop to get gas, and a state trooper was filling up behind her. He was giving her weird looks, which puzzled her until the following morning. She yelled at my other sister, I could have been arrested. Haha. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.